Welcome to Your Inner Authority, the sacred art of living in your authentic truths. My name is Priscilla Bernstein, and I am the Soul Alignment Specialist, and I'm talking with Allison Rojas Metcalf of Salute Shop. In this podcast, we're here to share all we've learned about what it means to live your life from your authentic codes and how to navigate life within your inner authority. We're sharing what we know from our years of exploration of human design, gene keys, quantum physics, spirituality, yoga, and more. As you listen to these episodes, it is our intention that they help to support you on your journey of aligning to your sovereignty and soul truths. Welcome, and let's get started. Yay. Here we are again, episode 3.
We're back.
We're back. Where would you like to start today, Allison?
Yeah, right before we started recording, you were talking about building containers and intention. And I think that's very prevalent right now with people, especially because we're in this, like the open space. Some people refer to it as the void, like this space between confronting something that's either a shadow or a challenge aspect of our lives.
That liminal space, right?
Yeah, and that grace period that we're always offered of, you won't be shoved in a direction that you're not ready for.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's presenting itself to us in any way, there is an area of like, you are ready for this, but in terms of the humanity of us, we avoid those areas of ourselves, those like shadow aspects or those challenging aspects, because I think because our imagination is so fantastic that it can create these stories of like utter failure or like disconnection from a person that we care about a lot, or financial failure in some way. But really, those are stories through the mind. And I would love to hear more about what you're experiencing in your body as you navigate it, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that do come face to face with these like awarenesses and how to differentiate. Is this the void of something that I need to walk through, or is this a pause of just like self-reflection? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting in you even saying that, because there's that aspect of, we touched on this, I guess, in the first episode, where in that liminal space or the void, there's just so much unknown because you haven't quite landed yet. You haven't quite hooked onto anything yet. And you just feel like you're floating through outer space, like without any sort of anything to ground you or to land on quite yet. And so it's this really big time of faith, I think. And this is in and of itself a test from, I would say, the universe and our higher self and our guides and angels, or whatever you believe in and want to call it, whatever it is that's bigger than our human aspect, right? That, when we're being led towards something, I think it's so beautiful where, if it is presenting itself, how can we be advantageous and like I know that's in my chart, is to be advantageous and like to kind of jump on the opportunities that are available to me when I feel that excitement. And so it's been really interesting through dating as well, and creating these courses or these retreats and these, containers for group work, that it's like, if something isn't lighting me up, if something isn't giving me that big fuck yes, if something in my body isn't like drawing me in and expanding and leaning me forward and getting me super excited, then it's just like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Like, I had an opportunity to go to a concert last night and it sounded amazing, but my body was just really like I was just done, my whole being was really just zapped, and it felt better to me to take a slow evening, take the dogs for a walk, come back, have a tequila, make some tacos, like watch a home makeover show and go to bed. Like it would have been an amazing experience and a fun first date. But at the same time, I'm like, I just don't have the energy for it. And it's like, I'm not jumping out of my skin to go. So that's a no for me, and I've learned how to really, I think, honor that. But in and of itself, when I was kind of getting more into creating these bigger group containers and higher end offers in the course that I was doing, that I was learning stuff about this, nothing like when I was trying to create this container, nothing felt quite right, like there's no way to really describe it, because it is this just sense feeling within your body and within your knowing. I watched a gal today who I guess is like a therapist, and like helps you with your regulating your nervous system. And she says, so there's a difference between instinct and intuition. And your instinct is coming, kind of what you said, based on a little bit of your past, your ego, your experiences that you've lived, quote unquote, before. And then the body gets triggered to give you something, right? Like it's still coming through the body, but it's a reaction to something that has happened before, where your intuition is something that brings it, like doesn't agitate your body. It brings peace within your body and is a lot slower in its energy, in how it comes in, and then how it is that you choose it. There's more, quote unquote, like intention behind it, because it's coming from this like deeper sense felt place. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And it makes me think of in like quantum physics and even like the DNA and genetic expression that we have in our body. There's all of our like DNA wants to move into mutation for the better. And so it's even referred to as like the pause is actually the mutation. So if you can sit with it long enough so that the genetic mutation can happen, it can have an impact for generations from your DNA and from the expression that you carry with you in interactions with other people. So basically what that distills down to is we can also look at these moments of pause as literally being in the genetic mutation of the energy. And that's why it's so persistent. That's why people can experience something over and over again. They can experience a relationship that doesn't work in the same way over and over again, because that mutation wants to happen in the body. And if you're avoiding it in some way, or if you blame it on the other person, then you're not really allowing your own physical form to go through that very inner mutation of your own genetic design. So
it's a cycle, right? Like it has to fully go through the cycle.
It has to complete. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the persistence is what's like the beauty of it, of like, this. Yeah. So many people will get comfortable just getting shoved into a corner, and you watch people in your life too. You watch people that you know and care about, or even people, that are famous and they're experiencing these challenges in life, and you see for them, you see like, oh, if you just, stepped into your worth, or if you just acknowledge this gift that people are, trying to pull out of you, or acknowledge that that person that you are partnered with has met their evolutionary capacity in the relationship with you. Not to say that you don't love each other anymore, or that you're not fit for each other anymore, but there's something genetically that we're constantly seeking through our biology. So through those, viruses and the bacteria that live in us, they are constantly supporting and us seeking that like natural highest expression of self through our genetics. So it's not that there's energy for no reason, or that there's, you know, there's like a spiritual formation for no reason. It's for a very deep purpose that lives in our incarnation. So it's it's very much on purpose that we're going through these things, and that we have the courage and strength to not just sit with them as the body is, you know, mutating, but then to be able to get to the other side of that and to reap the reward of what that looks like in its now higher expression of self.
Yes. And you know what's so interesting is within that cycle, that necessity or need, whether it's within the cycle or once you finish and complete the cycle, that necessity or the need for rest,
Mhm.
for that downtime to fully process and integrate, and I think it's more than just once in the cycle that rest kind of comes into being. And so, even for me going through that experience yesterday of like, oh, I know if I push myself to go to this when my body's asking for rest, and I'm about to start my cycle, so I can feel how that shift in energy has like slumped as my body prepares to release, right? And so I find that, and I don't know how other women are, but I find that in those like day or two before my actual cycle, speaking of cycles, right? The menstrual cycle, that dip in energy, like it's almost as if my immune system dips and I'm more susceptible to take something in or on, like you said, genetically, right? With via bacteria or virus or whatnot, that it's like my defenses are down in that moment. So things can come in as the body is getting ready to release. And so what's really interesting is that acknowledgement or need for rest and listening to that. And then once you are completed in the cycle, I feel like there's also a need, not so much the menstrual cycle, because I feel like we get all of our energy back kind of after we've like ended, but just in the cycle of transmutation or any sort of up leveling that we're doing in our life, that those points of rest are so necessary for integration, for deep reflection, for embodiment. And then, I mean, it's so perfect and really succinct with the energy that we're going through right now with the 5 planets in retrograde. We're ending the Lionsgate portal tomorrow. And then we have that full moon in Aquarius today. And so there's just like all of this stuff kind of coming to the surface. And it's like we've been doing so much work and there's like all this energy behind it. And I think we're all about to be like, boop, like pop out on the other side in our expansion. But it's like this need for rest, integration, embodiment, like when a mother births a child for the first time or, whenever, but it's like you have that moment of rest after the labor. You have that moment of reprise and reset and letting your body heal and letting, the baby come out into the world and experience what it's experiencing. And then you're experiencing them for the first time and everything's so new and expansive, but it's like, how do we learn within that rest and how do we embody this new version of ourselves?
And how, like, it's so perfect the way you said it too, where you verbalize, I felt like my defenses were down and I needed to retreat. And so you did just that. You don't always know why the retreat happens, but you knew that biologically your sense was that you couldn't be at your full capacity to defend whatever it is, your immune system, your emotional system, your mental awareness, and chose to retreat. And that's fine. That's actually a good thing to do. And that's what we all have the capacity to do when we do either like align with our intuition or just just have faith in it, like,
Totally.
so, like, I mean, I feel like I've been going through something similar, even just this morning, where I'll live in my mind with a decision, and then I'm like, but my heart really wants to do it, but my mind is like, you do not have the energy right now. Your physical body doesn't have the energy to do what your heart wants to do. So the priority for me right now is, okay, then you need to dial it back. You need to like not engage with highly disruptive people. I don't have a lot of those in my life, but there's a couple right now. And then it kind of goes to what I was sharing earlier of, when you have tried and true ways of kind of skirting the decision,
Mhm.
like, just this, I'll just like override it. We've talked about
Yeah.
over before, but I'll just like skirt around this, and I'll just have just enough energy to get there. But in our family, at least, I'm always like, make sure you have the energy to get back. Like, we always can like negotiate, I'll just go to the concert, but make sure you have the energy to make sound decisions to get, home and rest and all that.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because it was like 30, it's in the next town over. It's like almost like 30 minutes away. It would have been another thing had I been able to walk to the venue and been like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm tired. I'm going to go home, and walk home. But it's like I would have either had to take a shuttle or drive myself 30 minutes out of the way. So I think that's so beautiful that how you said that around like, because when we think about anything that we're quote unquote committing to, whether it's a container or an experience or just plans with somebody, like that's why I think it's getting a little bit more and more difficult for people to make plans really far in advance, because
Mhm.
I think more of the population and more of the collective is realizing like, oh, I may not feel like that when I get there, but I also don't want to be asked the day of. So like give me a little bit of advance notice. But there's like that happy balance you know, um when you're realizing that what you're committing to, there has to be that energy for the full round trip, like, and
Mhm.
when we talk about energetics, like you said, it's like we can continue to override that, but then that's us kind of living in quote unquote the matrix, living in that patriarchal society of like, well, hide your emotions, hide what you're feeling, like override what your heart is saying, and actually like just push through, like just do it. And I did that for a long time, even with working out. And I remember asking my body, I'm like, what do you need? Because I was hurting all the time. I felt like I was gaining weight, not losing weight. And I felt like there was a lot of muscle on me and I was strong, but like it wasn't showing, right? Like maybe my hormones were off, but I remember asking my body, I'm like, what do you need? And it just said, just stop.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So I literally took a year off from working out.
Wow.
And now when I work out, I don't push myself super hard. It's like, I have my Apple Watch and I do enough to like burn my calories and like until I feel good and have gotten through my like cycle of what a full workout feels like. And then I'm done. But it's like compounded over time. I'm starting to see real results, if I'm being really consistent with it. And I think that's the thing in which we as a collective are starting to awaken to and learn is how to override, right, the sides of the brain, and like how to recalibrate or rebalance within ourselves around what is authentic and true to us and what is authentic and true to our soul, and what it is that our heart and soul is actually really wanting in that moment. I've had this post idea in my head, and it's all around hearing people say I don't know, right? And
Mhm.
yes, there is that aspect of liminal space of not really knowing where you're going next or not really knowing what you want next. But I think when we really sit with it and when we really get embodied, there is this innate knowing of what we do want.
Mhm.
And that can even just be a feeling,
Mhm.
an emotion, a sense within us. Like, I
Mhm.
really want freedom,
Mhm.
spaciousness, and
Mhm.
peace, like that's what I want. I don't know what that looks like, but that, like I think we can really grasp on to like
Mhm.
an actual like sense feeling to tap into. And then when you plug into that, instead of saying, I don't know, like you can be in
Mhm.
that I don't know mind, right? Like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but this is what I want. And this is what my intention is in achieving every day. And
Mhm.
so, what are the choices that I'm making? What are the things that I'm committing to that are going to allow me to have more of that in my
Mhm.
life? Do you
Mhm.
want to speak to that around the like left brain, right brain, and that recalibration and what just that I don't know space, that liminal space in human design in your life?
When I hear people use the term I don't know, there is a gate that carries the consistent energy of knowingness, and then our ajna of knowing. But I do feel like when it's verbalized as consistently and as casually as it's used nowadays, is more often it's the sense of I don't feel safe to share what I know. Like,
Mhm.
it's not like, oh, I don't know. It's like, I don't, I think I feel like I know, but I don't know if this is safe to share yet, or if I believe that, you know, there's like an accountability to stepping into the bigness. Because more often than not, too, I find that when you get a chance to sit with people, especially one on one with people, and you create that space with them of it's safe to share what you know you want in life with me, and I won't pass judgment, and I know that's your journey. A lot of times it can be taken to a point where the realization is way bigger than what they originally shared. And
Mhm.
that's the thing that I have so much faith in with humanity is, oh, whatever you think you know is the thing that you want in your life right now. The capacity to experience so much greater is actually sitting right beyond that. Like if you could just start saying and verbalizing with people in your safe space, the aspirations and the dreams and goals you have with whatever it is, then your body just becomes so familiar with the energy and the safety of saying this, like the first step of the goal or the dream, that it just naturally progresses into like, well, okay, so this is what I want right now, but really what I'm trying to get to experience is this bigger thing. And if if there's this really great girl who actually her specialty is marketing, and um I think it's called like B agency, and just BE agency. And
Mhm.
her whole approach to marketing is this idea of there's this North Star in our life and our business and in our consulting, whatever kind of business you may have. But there's actually these planets that are just underneath that. And then there's these stars that are just underneath that. So I like to think of that visual in the same way of your life um, goals and wants and desires, because your North Star you always are aware of, and it's huge. And sometimes it's things where you're like, I don't know how that's going to happen, but I've always felt like that's what I want to experience in my life, whether it's
Mhm. Mhm.
being married with kids or starting a business or moving to a really beautiful, dreamy location. Those are always things that kind of have been with us since we've been young. We're drawn to it in the movies we watch and the people we meet and the stories we hear. There's just these touch points over and over again throughout life of like, oh, that's the reminders of that's what I want to experience. And it's less about that's what I want, and it's more about that's what I desire to experience. Like that
Mhm.
makes me feel expansive and expanding. So the way that she mapped it out, if it's in marketing terms, it's well, identify what your stars are first. So if your North Star is to be on, this is in business terms now, if your North Star is to be on the cover of um, Vogue magazine, then the planets around that would be something like, what's if that's an international magazine, then what are some nationally known magazines? Like, oh, I want to be in an article in Magnolia.
Uh-huh.
And then beyond that, okay, so what would lead to an experience like that? Oh, okay, maybe a local magazine that I really love. So in your city that you live in, or your town that you live in,
So you're reverse engineering
you're
and
reverse
coming
engineering.
back and coming back to tangible action steps that you can take that will eventually get you to the trajectory or within that orbit of whatever that big, would you
Yeah.
call it the North Star or that big star?
Yeah, you're a big star. Like,
Uh-huh.
that's what you want to experience. And there could be many of those. So what I think is really just like exciting and inspiring and motivating right now is that our history, like our family, our parents' generation, their generation, there's always been one North Star. Like, okay, there's one North Star in your life, and that's like the big goal to kind of like keep your eye on, whether it's you know, achieving a certain role in your job, or having a certain number of children, or buying a house at this very specific location. It's not, the energy is not interested in that anymore. It's not about the one funnel approach of
Mhm.
just put all your eggs in that one basket and then go for that one North Star.
Totally, yeah.
It's more about like, you got to expand even bigger in your creative imagination, because there's gonna be uh like a handful of North Stars in your life and at different parts of your life. And don't use your energy on limiting what you can experience at any given time. Because if you say are living in your life and you're like, oh, right now my North Star is a beautifully expansive relationship with a love partner, and that's where all your energy is focused on, there's all these other things that also want to be created through you at the same time, whether
Hmm.
it's like friendships, or creative pursuits, or areas to live. But a lot of people are like, like I think it's a lot of people's outside limiting beliefs that are influencing your potential as a person and as a creative.
Mm.
As we move into this age of Aquarius, it is all about creative endeavors. It is not about limiting into like one industrial organization or one business organization. It is not about that at all. It's it's like you are expanded enough to have multiple iterations of what wants to come through you to be created in the world, because there's a necessity of new creative endeavors to exist amongst us. And it's up to us to have those come through. So
Absolutely.
that kind of like ties back into this right brain, left brain thinking of, in human design, it's referred to as your variable. So where are you naturally oriented as a person? And you meet these people in life too. You meet people that are very um, logical, strategic, objective, focused. Those are considered left variable people, but it's also left brain. So we know
Mhm.
that our left brain is our logical side of the brain, and it's also the masculine side of our energetics. So now, as we move into the age of Aquarius, we have to now expand the right side of our brain, which is all about creative endeavors, creative expression, communication. And in our parents' generation, our moms were the first generation of women that were really like merging into that left brain thinking of like going back to work and earning money and strategically applying a level of education. And it has not always, but often been at the cost of creative energy and expression and connection. So now our generation and those beyond us are all about the opportunity to reconnect and connect, not through our own benefit, but for the mutual benefit of those we are connecting with. And there's like kind of a very strange aspect of human design that is the genetic component to this. But so essentially, the reason projectors aren't supposed to engage deeply with all invitations is because the space that they're giving between themselves and others is actually the space to recognize like the strongest creative genes. So when people are inviting projectors in, they're actually asking projector energy to assess the genetic expression of themselves.
That makes sense. One of my good friends is a projector, and she's a very, very talented creative. And so when she's not honored in like her quote unquote like knowing, it's really frustrating for her. And like, she reads human design charts too and has gotten really deep into human design and gene keys and all that stuff. But it was so interesting because she had been running like a generator her whole life. And what she like realized is she realized like, oh, I can see how my like brilliance is like seeing the genius and then lighting it up and projecting it outward. But if somebody's not asking me to give my input, it goes unnoticed.
And that natural inclination for projector energy to want to point out what's not working and how quickly it could be shut down by other people is that opportunity for like, I see how this very like potentially creative being can be in their highest expression, and the motivation is so strong to encourage that to happen and to be expressed that if that person's not ready to enter into that mutation themselves, it will be shut down. It is literally a survival reaction to not surviving and thriving in like a future sense, but the survival of what it is now, like wanting to maintain status quo is so strong that it's not even a conscious effort on people. It's literally the survival of the status quo fighting back against anything mutating its like present expression.
Yeah. Almost like what we talked about earlier, like these milestone tests, right? Like kind of like weren't like ripping you back into the matrix, the 3D. And I feel, I mean, just in what you were saying, it was so beautiful because you're talking about the age of Aquarius. And we've been, I mean, this is a really long process. It's like a 2,000-year process, the age of Aquarius. Or how long is it? Do you know? I have it written down in my book. It's not coming to the top of my head right now, but it's a really long process. And so we're getting to the point where things are starting to ramp up. And with our full moon, we're recording this on the full moon and it's in Aquarius. And this full moon is so beautifully aspected in really helping us come into our full and divine truth and to release all the like masks, all the ways in which we were wearing facades, like in the channeled cosmic newsletter that I do, Spirit had said, we're moving from the collective we into the transitory me. And I was like, ooh, I love how they put that. And it's like we are building something for the collective, but we're not so much focused on the collective right now as much as we are focused on our own transformation and our own peeling back of the layers and our own healing and our own transmutation. And as we move through that, the transitory me can come out on the other side of that and our effect, our, the vibrational frequency in which we carry in this new vibrational frequency that we're coming into, that we have done all this work over the last, I feel like the, I don't know, the energy over the last since 2019, for the
Mhm.
last 3 years has been, I mean, that's the quickening that we stepped into, right? In that Lionsgate portal in 2019 was literally when Spirit's like, I had already kind of launched myself as the soul alignment specialist, but I was still like, okay, Spirit, like, what are you asking of me? Like, what was this title that you gave me? Like, and it led me into doing all of this remote energy work where I could work with people around the world. And I wasn't using these tools anymore. I was just using my body as the vessel.
Mm.
And then from there, it amplified even further into creating these courses and working in groups. And it's just like, it's been slowly expanding, but it's when I really started and like shifted completely my newsletter, and like what I was really doing in my business. And then the channel messages were starting to come through. And so everything, like they were asking me to do videos all the time. And I was just
Mm.
so unbelievably uncomfortable with that. And they asked me for like years, like, you got to do video, you got to do more video. And I was just like, I don't want to. But then I finally started to, and it's like each time, it took some time, but it got a little more comfortable and a little more comfortable and a little more comfortable to where it like doesn't bother me anymore to show up on camera and not be fully camera ready. I'm just like, whatever, fuck it. Like this message has to get out. Here it comes. So I don't re-record things over and over again, like I don't try to make it perfect. It just, what needs to come out comes out. And it's been this really beautiful process. But I mean, it really started with the Lionsgate in 2019, this like mass conscious awakening on the planet of the society now, right? So we've had these like big, I would say, overarching like cycles, like back in the 70s, when our parents, and like you said, the women in our generation, our mothers, coming into this like, we had the 60s, right? And this like mass revolution of love, right? And then in the 70s and 80s, these women coming back up and out into the workforce, and it's like these waves have started, but it's like, whatever this wave is this overarching wave of awakening in the collective consciousness
Mhm.
to recalibrate the left and right hemispheres of the brain, to bring us back into brain and heart coherence. Like we can't just turn off the brain and only work in our hearts. We have to be able to navigate the two in such a symbiotic way that they're working together, right? And so it's just really interesting how we'll have these experiences in our life where all of a sudden, when we are living from our highest vibrational frequency and we are in alignment with our higher selves and we are tapped into that like 5D matrix, and things are really popping off in our reality, and then all of a sudden we're triggered or pulled back into this the 3D matrix, and tested on like, whoa, wow, this is like really
Mhm.
dense. And like, how
Mhm.
are like, hold on, like I don't even think like this anymore. Hold on, I have to like like come back down the ladder and
Yeah.
like really like, well, how do I engage with you?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
like I had met this guy and things were really great, but it was interesting because I triggered him a lot because I was a lot like his mom, and his mom was, I would say, not an amazing parent in the sense that like she would take him to the naturopath and stuff like that, but like when he was sick he would like, we're not talking anymore, so I feel like I can talk about this. But he said like, oh, but my mom would take me to the naturopath and I'd have to go get like a enema. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I could see how that would be really like somewhat traumatizing for a child, right?
Mhm.
Like having to go get your colon cleaned out, but I was like, but I mean, it makes sense. The immune system is like in your digestive system. Like it makes complete sense, And so I would say things and it would trigger him completely. And he
Mhm.
would cut me off and ramble on into like his, projection. And I was like, yo, man, like, okay, like I need, it was just like, okay, I'm like way up here and like, you know, seeing things at this broader perspective. And like, you can't even let me finish this sentence because you're triggered about your childhood and how you were brought up. And I'm bringing that out. I'm like, I think you have a lot of work to do with your mother and like healing that aspect between you two.
Mhm.
But it's like he grew up in that, so he only wants to live in the 3D, which I think is so interesting. Where I'm like,
Mhm.
ooh, like
Mhm. Mhm.
like he was in the military and works for the government. I'm just like, yeah, I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know. I don't see this working out. So but
Kind of
it really is that like you have to come down the ladder and then be like, how do I even engage here in a
the
way that is conscious and intentional and with love and not, I don't want to make you wrong for it. And I don't want to judge you because it's not about that. But it's like, how can I help you see things from a different perspective? And are
Mhm.
you even ready for that? Is that
Mhm.
something you want? Or is that just me? Like I've had to learn not to share. Does that make sense? Like you're laughing probably because you're like, oh yeah. Like because when we like if it's not, and I don't know if this is all the human design, but like I would say with projectors and with generators, I'm a pure generator, it's like if somebody's not asking for my opinion or my input, I have learned that I should not. And I don't like to say should, but it's like if I want peace, like I will not interject and I will not share.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, that that I laughed because it made me think of, there's the healers maybe of decades ago that was like this sage, this monk, or this priest, or this. I think what's instilled in our memory of who can advise us are those that are like very grounded and very quiet, and they listen. And and I don't think that's where we are right now in our evolution. This has no basis other than me observing, what's going on. But what I'm finding in observing is that there are these moments and interactions where you are staying true to the call of like, we're mutating, guys. Like, this is go time. It is
Mm-hmm.
game time. I am here for this. And I'm reminding you of what your role is as, a masculine, gendered male in this world right now. Like, you have a role too. And it's
Right.
not to continue supporting these 3D aspects of the world. So a lot of those interactions are the trigger for mutation, and it is through love and guidance that happens with. And if the world is telling you that you're too much, and these men are fighting against that, it makes me chuckle because
Yeah.
I'm like, well, of course they're
Yeah.
like resisting, they're negotiating. But you're 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 you know you're still in your calling of, yeah, I'm going to instigate the mutation if I ever meet it person to person. It's not that
Mm-hmm.
you're like, going out there and instigating the world and doing this and that, but you're like, you're saying that if somebody's choosing me to be in the intimacy of their aura, and I see or feel something that is out of sync with where we're going, then I'm going to agitate it out. I'm going to agitate the mutation to happen. And hearing that, I'm like, yeah, good. Because we are still nice people. We are still loving, kind women. We're still, um, heeding the call, even when we are like loving in that way. We're loving through our agitating out of the other. And what I would like really push people to consider right now is, what has been the biggest negotiations that you've been doing over and over since you've been sitting with something stressful in your life. So it's not that life wants to bring stress to everybody. That's not the case at all. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually seeking the ease, it's seeking the flow. So when there's things that we're negotiating, there's themes around them. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're negotiating not talking to a parent that's in our life, or we're negotiating a salary that's too low for the time that we're exchanging it for, or we're negotiating a house that's too um, like shitty for us to feel good in,
Yeah.
or neighborhood that's it can go on, but only you know what it is that you're negotiating with in life. But now's the time to stop and to be like, I don't care what happens next. I just know that I don't want to
Yeah.
settle for that anymore. I just know that I don't want to make that an excuse anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And like step into it. But that's the hardest, I mean, that's the hardest part of our own personal awakening, is to say, from this moment on, I will behave differently. I will be differently in my role, in my experiences. And going back to like those moments of when you are facing this carrot dangling in front of you of like, oh, but remember how nice it was to have a steady paycheck and to have recognition in an industry. And I feel in my own personal life that there's just one remaining aspect that is still alive from that past of my own, that
Yeah.
like 3D full immersion 3D of like you're only valuable if you're in an industry and climbing the ladder and making the money. And it happens to be somebody that's like of a completely different generation as well. So I'm seeing a lot of those limiting beliefs and a lot of those like ego and this like desire to exchange time for money.
Mm-hmm.
And having lived in a space of, I decide what my time is, I decide who to give it to, I decide to invest it in my child through homeschool currently, and through my own business,
Yeah.
and through my relationship with my spouse. I get to choose what that looks like. And I'm not asking for um, a fiat in return from them, like the what is exchanged is something far deeper and far more long lasting than a dollar bill. And so that's why it makes me think very much about this role of cryptocurrency and what's happening in the world outside of us right now, because there's something about the energy of the US dollar and it it coming and participating in the material world, but only for certain people. And whether or not in the next coming years are the shift of it's not circulating as much because it doesn't have the vitality it once had. And so where our focus can shift to is this opportunity for moving into a digital age of exchange, and recognizing that the exchange happens for creating something new for everybody to participate in. So it's really interesting to me looking at like through COVID, how cryptocurrency was just like ramping up big time. So cryptocurrency is all about the exchange of something digitally that is protected through blockchain. And
Mm-hmm.
so the more people use it and exchange it, the higher value it has, because the lower amount there is in supply. But it can continuously split up until a certain amount. It's not like paper money that you could just print indefinitely and then the dollar has lower value. You have to use more dollars to buy something um, than last year, for example. So,
Well, and when you think about the state of the economic state of our
mhm,
world right now,
mhm,
like everybody, I think, is freaking out about money.
mhm,
And when we think about, in energy, like money is just energy. It all isn't all backed by gold anymore. Like
Mhm.
in the grand scheme of things, it's just a piece of paper, like it's pretty meaningless. It just has an amount on it that gives, and we're the ones that give it the energy. And there's so much muddled energy steeped in quote unquote money. And so I think too, with just like inflation and all the stuff that's happening in our quote unquote reality right now, as we're making this shift, right? And the split between 3D and 5D, it's like that 4D, right? 4D is all about the timeline. It's all about like the structure, And so like when we think about like we're not on linear time anymore, everything's like collapsing in on itself. And this like split is happening between this old paradigm and this new paradigm. And we have this 3D of old earth, this dense way of doing things, the patriarchal way, the logical way, like the things that made sense before, like that don't quite make sense to you now. It's like we're moving into this more felt, right? Into the higher vibrational frequencies of the heart, of things that are backed and made with love for the greater good of all. And when we think about how this structure of commerce and money, like how it has only really been um, feeding the rich more and creating a huge disparity between, low, I don't want to say low class and upper class, but like there's less and less middle class, if you will say, if we can say. And but when we think about it, as we move into 5D, it's like we're accessing our limitless potential within ourselves, within our ability to manifest and create. And like it's like we have to get over our own limiting beliefs and the things that have been programmed and embedded into us about the way we think about money, our relationship with money, our relationship with just currency in general, because what it is meant for is to help you live your life and to help you experience more and to help you barter and trade, to like have a different experience, if you will.
Mhm.
And so, what's so beautiful about that is that there is enough to go around
Mhm.
and there is enough to continue to be created. And the amount of what can be created between people when you've healed your relationship with that, when you've healed your ideology and your limiting beliefs around it. And like, we're seeing how this structure of money and wealth and only helping the rich, like those with quote unquote with, right? um how it's like that 1%, how it's like that doesn't serve the greater good. So how can we recreate this huge structure in our life, this huge foundational piece in our life to help the greater good? And I think that's where cryptocurrency, like you said, is going.
Mhm. And it's funny because people use it to like what you said, money is energy. People
Uh-huh.
hear that and they think, oh, how woo-woo, like how
Mm-hmm.
like spiritual to just say money is energy. They don't live in the real world. And I get it. I get that perspective because I probably was there,
Well, and
like,
we need money to survive in this world.
and part of it, so when you think of that, it's like the money is there. It is a reflection of our energy, but what you're mad at isn't the money. You're mad at the expression of the energy through the people. So if we are funneling all this
Mhm.
money to the top 10%, it's only a reflection of us as a society saying they are the ones worthy of this. So it's our idolization of these people in in entertainment business, in government, in business, like the Jeff Bezos and the Elon Musks, where it's through our own belief system of saying that you must be famous in order to have money that is
Mm,
reinforced by money. you
mhm,
know
mhm.
like that is what it's a reflection of. It's not necessarily a reflection of, your level of education. It's truly a reflection of the belief system within your family, community, society, culture, even across gender lines, across cultural identities. So it's no mistake that money um, has splintered off the way it has, because it's only a reflection of what we believe as a society about ourselves and each other. So
Right.
if we're willing to step into a role that is counter to the storyline of belief, then that's when money will change. So
Mm-hmm.
it requires us, me, I know I incarnated here to be a mother, to be a wife. I am a woman of color. I am an artist. I'm a creative and a businesswoman. So
Right.
all the areas that I have an energetic exchange with right now are
Mm-hmm.
what I came to say I will be a part of the evolution of what those areas represent. So it's not in my um, belief system to say because I am a certain way, that is the most I can make. That
Mm-hmm.
is the only opportunity I can have. And right now there is an exchange that I'm having with somebody who doesn't believe the same way, who believes that men actually still are paid more than women. We can get women to do more, and in the meantime, just have them sit idly by, because that's what men, drive the um, steer the ship, and women
Mm-hmm.
take care of the things around that. And I am pushing against that belief system and saying,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's actually not the case. I am looking for you to contribute in just the same manner, so that we as a whole can benefit through this. And so it gets like, these are the negotiation aspects, though, where it gets hard, because you are definitely posed with opportunity to give in, of
Yeah.
you know what, I'm just going to avoid this mutation and concede in some way. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't contribute to the evolution of anything. So if we're experiencing the same thing with money right now, where money is funneled to the top 2%. Money is funneled more towards men. Money is funneled more towards a certain ethnic group or not. And so there's all these like beliefs that have been established, and right now all of us collectively are faced with this negotiation aspect of, do we continue on with this knowing that it's not the right energy expression, or
Mm-hmm.
do we welcome in this new unfamiliar one that has the potential to elevate more, not just more people, but countries? Like,
Mm-hmm.
has the potential to elevate not just a person's like capacity to earn, but literally countries to elevate out of poverty. And so this is our like cultural negotiation right now with money. Are we willing to step away from what we perceive as security through the fiat in order to welcome in security through everybody? A rising tide lifts all ships. So are we willing to go through that mutation and to welcome in something that is that has the potential to have a greater impact in that way? And and are we willing to do that without knowing the full story yet, because it's
Mm-hmm.
ever evolving and revealing itself?
It's interesting that you say that, because I was listening to, I don't know what it was, like a master class or something the other day around money and investing.
Mhm.
And it's so, I mean, this is like the energy of investment, right? It's like there usually aren't these like get rich quick scheme investments. Like, yes, I'm sure there are. Like, yes, you can hit a stock or, you know, have some sort of investment that pays out really big, really quickly. But in the grand scheme of things, when you are investing energetically or monetarily into something, it's something that is going to accrue over time. And it's in the long-term investment. If you have the ability and you have the funds to bring into and have an emergency fund just in case everything tanks in your investment, right? But like if you're willing to put that money in or that investment in and over time let it accrue. I mean, it's just the same thing with like starting a business, right? Like I think about when I started my jewelry business, I would do all of these, every pop-up shop, every time somebody invited me to something, I would go, I would do it, and all these street fairs. And, you know, like I got to this point where I just like something clicked in me and I said, it doesn't matter if I don't have a sale, if I'm even making my rent, like doesn't matter. What matters is I'm gaining more people on my email list. I'm getting in front of more people. And it's like, it's almost like this numbers game, right? So it's like with each investment of time, of energy, of, you know, monetary investment of what you're putting in each creation, you know, you're creating these like steps that over time will accrue and get you to where you want to go. And before you know it, it's like that same analogy of just like, just start, you
Just
know,
start.
just start. Like you don't have to have a lot. If you're starting a business, like you just build the plane while you're flying it, you know, like you just take that first step. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the resources. You don't have to understand even what you're quite doing yet. You just start, and every fail is a learning experience that'll keep getting you to the next step. Like, okay, that didn't work. Let me try again, and let me try it like this, you know? And kind of going back to where we started, when you talked about like, you can't just invest in like one thing, right? Like you have to diversify. Like it's not putting all your chips in one thing, because if that one thing fails, it's like having this one career, right? This one way of bringing in money and no other way of bringing in money. And so let's say that job, all of a sudden, like the company goes bankrupt and you lose your job and you lose your benefits. And then all of a sudden you're up shit's creek and you don't know what to do. But like any sort of quote unquote millionaire, billionaire has diversified their investments and their assets. And they have their hands in so many different things and have different conduits and funnels of things channeling money into them that, you know, some of them don't work out. Some of them completely fail and they lose big. But it's like you have to invest, I would say, big energetically or monetarily, like however you want to put it. There has to be that commitment, quote unquote, of investing fully in something and then diversifying. So I guess that's one of the rules of millionaires. It's like you should always have at least 5 streams of income. And this resonated so deeply with me when I heard this probably about 5 years ago. But I realized that it was like, if you just have that one thing, you're so focused on it. And when there's some sort of block or some sort of stagnancy, instead of focusing on how to remove that block or how to make it flow, you just move over here or over here or over here or over here to these other 4 channels. And this naturally releases itself, kind of like your bowels, you know, over time. It will naturally release itself and, you know, continue to flow, but you have all these other 4 streams coming in at the same time too. So it is really interesting. That wasn't what you were saying at the beginning, but it alluded to that kind of energetically about having multiple streams of income and multiple streams of like where you're investing your time and energy, which goes back to, like you said, what you're negotiating, what you're allowing into your reality, which goes back to, well, what is it that you want? What is your desire? You know, are you negotiating and allowing something that you don't want anymore? Like, how can you nip that in the bud and make a different choice that will align you more to what you do desire
Mhm.
to have, and then renegotiating. So when we talk about the word commitment, this came through another course that I did with two women in my mastermind. And the word commitment, it was so beautiful because their whole ideology around commitment was that every day you get to recommit if you
Mm.
fall off that commitment.
Mhm.
Every day you get that choice, every minute, every hour of every day. If you fall off that commitment ride that you were on, like working out every day, right? The
Mhm.
next day, that following day, or that next minute, you get that choice. Like, are you going to continue to stay off this ride, or are you going to jump back on and recommit?
Mhm.
And like the energy of commitment, I think, is so beautiful and so strong. And I had this moment of clarity because I have a mastermind, and I had this one gal that wanted to jump off recently. And I said, okay, like, and then we had our meeting yesterday, and then another woman like was like, I'm not gonna make it, but she like didn't give me a heads up. And
Mm.
so we didn't have as many people that were going to be on the call. So I thought about rescheduling. And then it was like, like everybody was, like it was like trying to wrangle cats.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, like, what I needed to hear was from two of the women. They sent me personal messages. They jumped out of the group chat, and they were like, whatever you want to do, I'm 100% committed. So
Mhm.
I will do whatever you choose,
Mhm.
instead of letting them have the choice. And in
Mhm.
that moment, I had this realization, what I had told you earlier about even having the kind of wishy washy energy in the container at the
Mhm.
beginning, that it was like, oh, where, like, I need to take responsibility here because I'm co-creating, this is my container that I've created. And where in this container have I put the vibrational frequency of wishy-washiness, of non-commitment, because I've very specifically talked to each one of them and said, this is a year-long commitment that you're signing up for, like it was stated, it was very clear. But I was letting them do month-to-month payments.
Mhm.
And so, just to make it easy on them. And
Mhm.
so it was so interesting, and like being able to pull back and have this acknowledgement that I co-created this in
Mhm.
my reality, and where in my life was I lacking in commitment. And so
Mhm.
I really got to like pull back, zoom out, look at all the aspects of my life of where I was not committing, or where I've been kind of lackadaisical about committing. And I was like, okay. And I just went through every single thing. And I was like, okay, I'm committing here. I'm recommitting back to my business. I'm recommitting back to not working for anybody else and doing everything on my own, like in the sense of like just nurturing the shit out of my business, and making whatever changes are coming through to make, and like even doing more videos, like the things that spirits like asked me to do, like initiating those, committing to those, and like continuing to feed those channels that are opening up of these like divine inspirations, right? Committing to even like staying in this property for another full year, even though I haven't signed a lease yet, but like keeping it and traveling out of here. And then
Mm.
possibly setting something up with my landlord to, if I'm out for 2 months, letting them Airbnb it and making even more money off of it
Mhm.
with my stuff here, you
Mhm.
know? And so it would be a win-win for both of us. And, there's just all these things that I was like, okay, I'm committing here, I'm committing here, I'm committing here, like all these different aspects of my life. And it was like, I just needed to hear these women say that they were committed to me. And I was like the missing key to everything. And so when I realized kind of how you were saying, I don't remember how you put it, and I wish I could be like and rewind to pull it back out. But you had said something that reminded me of just this kind of energy of commitment, because when we're in that kind of negotiation phase, there hasn't been a commitment, right? We're in that liminal space. We haven't said yes or no to landing somewhere or to being somewhere yet, you know? And there is the necessity for that. There is the necessity to be in the in-between.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, when you take that leap of faith, you're going to see where you need to land,
Mm-hmm.
and your foot is going to know exactly where to land because you've taken one leap. And when you think about like leaping from one rock to another,
Mm-hmm.
your foot's going to land on that next rock, or like in Indiana Jones, like he doesn't see that, like, rock pathway going across that, cavern. And he just takes the first step. And then it's like, boom, it like zooms out and you see the whole thing. But it's like he can't see it. He just keeps taking the step. And I don't know who said it. Was it Martin Luther King who said that quote? Like, you don't have to see the whole road. You just have to take, or the whole staircase. You just have to take the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a tattoo on my foot. It's in Sanskrit and it hurt like hell because there's a lot of nerve endings in your foot, in your feet. But it says, no obstacles exist. And I got it on my foot to remind me, like, you just have to take the first step.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is commitment.
Mm-hmm.
You're committing to that first step. And literally that's all that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So coming back to I'm like, where like I just was like on a channel stream
Well,
there.
no, I love it because I have an anecdotal story for that too.
Okay, perfect.
If you just take the first step, you'd be surprised at how quickly you land. So one of my girlfriends out here, she works in like a corporation. So it's like a smaller corporation, but it's essentially around environmental management. So we connected on our backgrounds around environmental sustainability. And she, when we first met out on her at her property on her picnic table in her backyard, she was like, we're starting a organic farm here on our property, and I want to get back into design. I really love fashion. And this was, I think we met in the early stages of COVID. So it was just one of those things where we hit it off at a maker show locally and then decided to hang out.
So she's in San Diego.
She's in San Diego. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna introduce you guys to my best friend. She's a landscape architect and she's all about sustainability and
Awesome.
community spaces. Yeah. You guys will all work really well together.
So about 5 weeks ago, no more than 5 weeks, we were out having lunch and she was like, okay, I have this crazy idea. She's been doing her jewelry line and exploring more with marketing and building up her Instagram following.
Mm-hmm.
It's Zeppelin, the label on Instagram. And her name is Anna. And she was saying, if you want any styling done or anything like that, I'd love to get involved in fashion somehow. So after working with jewelry and having just an impeccable sense of taste, she wanted to
collabed, right?
We did. Yeah. We've done jewelry collaborations. And so then she was saying, she wanted to get into this area. So when we had lunch after that, which couldn't have been more than a week later, she had finished her first photo shoot. So just by going on Instagram and saying, I don't know anything about styling, but I really love it. If you need anybody, let me know. So then her first photo shoot was booked literally within a week after just sharing it on Instagram, just sharing what her heart desires on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Then just this past week, she had shared that she was invited to go to Magic, which is a trade show out in Vegas, to style for a brand out there. So her star was this local photo shoot for a local business.
Yeah.
Then the planet was this, experience to go style for Magic, which is an industry-wide event. So her North Star is right in reach now, or her
Mhm.
big star is right within reach. So, and she's a pure generator as well. So, or emotional generator. But so yeah, it just goes to show like we are in a collapsing timeline right now where that whole like what you seek seeks you is
Yeah.
strong. It is strong if you just have, I guess, the grace to recognize that there are these blocks that we've put in place to protect us. So I
Mhm.
never want to be, I guess my approach is never hard on people, because if I do hear about experiences where for example, there's a hesitation around commitment with another person, that there's 3 segments of our upbringing that really help us focus in on what helped us become an integrated adult or not.
Mhm.
And the age between 7 and 14 are where we learn our own sexuality and our own yes and no with the other person.
Mhm.
The early part of our years are all about like, what is this world around me? What is this body I'm in? It's all
Mhm.
about the physicality of the world. So when we're integrated, we trust that we are who we are and the world is who we are, who they are. So there's really actually no room in there to start discussing gender identity, even because it's not an awareness factor of integration yet, not
Okay.
until the age of 7 on. So from 7 on, it's all about who are we engaging with and welcoming in as a relationship. So as friendships, between our parents, between our family members, our teachers, our whoever it is, there's this like yes and no aspect to the boundaries now of commitment. Who am I
Mhm.
willing to commit to, and who do I feel safe committing to me? And that's it. So even when you talk about the spectrum of education, there's, in my in my humble opinion, there is no need for this like educating and engaging in the mental spectrum before the age of 7, because it's all about playing and using your body and learning about the world around you.
Yeah, I
So
think what is it, like nature school or
yeah,
forest
yeah,
school or farm school?
exactly.
You know,
Yep.
like I'm not sure what it's called, but like that I think is probably a better use of a child's time, like you said, play and experiencing and learning in a very tangible way that is physical as opposed to mental.
Yes, because you're teaching the child their own strength. You're teaching them their own awareness, their own preferences of how they eat, how they feel in their own environment, how it feels to be spoken to in certain ways, and then how things in their world exist. So
Mhm.
that's a lot to learn. That's enough going on between 0 and 7, where you're like, okay, this is the world around me. These are hard, these are soft, this is wet, this is squishy. And then, as they get older into their awareness, it's like, okay, now I can trust that when I jump on this rock, it will support me. When I
Mhm.
jump from this rock to the next, I will be safe and I will make it. It's that physicality part of our experience. And then the 7 to 14 is this like this connective, this relationship, this engagement with the other. So if I ever do come across or hear anybody talking about, I'm so hard on myself because I can't maintain a relationship, or I can't find the right job, I have a hard time with my boss or my coworkers, then that's an area to reflect back on and to really love on yourself for too. Because if you're forced to engage with other people or not at that time, or um, like, you felt weird about meeting somebody, but then your parents were like, no, they're cool. Or you had a teacher that was supposed to be supportive of you, but they were actually really hard on you. These are areas that can start breaking the integration of ourself for the time that we become an adult. So then
Most definitely.
as we go into becoming an adult, we think we have these issues, but they're not. They're actually just areas that we haven't integrated yet, because something that we didn't trust was trying to come across as true. And we knew it wasn't true, but we didn't know how to either explain it yet, or we didn't know how to like reason with it yet, because we're building our emotional intelligence during that time.
Right.
So
So it's interesting because like as you're speaking, I'm getting this like almost visual of like it's you, like you're being created if as you think about a multifaceted diamond, right?
Mhm.
And all these things that aren't true aren't so much like inclusions, if you will, when you think about a diamond, like a speck in there, but it's like a fracture. It
Mhm.
was like coming through as like a crack almost. Like you weren't able to fully seal in that integration because there was something not true there. And
Mhm.
so there's like cracks, but you're not damaged. You're not um broken, even though you have these fractures, right? These like little lines, they're like hairline fractures. But it's like when we learn that, and this is a lot through the work that I do. When I take people into session, we go into the soul imprint, we go into past lives, we go into the inner child, and we go back a lot of times to being in the womb space too. And so when you realize or can pinpoint what the like inception point or the root of whatever that not truth was that came in, that fractured or put that hairline in your diamond, in you as the diamond, it's like all of a sudden that just seals up and you become integrated in that moment. And it's like you don't even need to be healed, you just need to see it
Yep.
and then to release it because it wasn't true and you've been holding on to it.
Exactly. Exactly. That is the moment of healing and embodiment.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, I was just getting this like visual, so I wanted to share that. Sorry, but keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was with you because it's not random, because even in human design, the like it's the reference of the body graph is called the design crystal. So you
Right.
have the design crystal and personality crystal, and it's the same. The refractions are there to be witnessed and to be integrated, but to not to live in perpetuity as your victim story.
Right. They don't
That
define you. Your story doesn't define
yeah,
you.
yeah, that's not the truth at an individual level, and that's not the truth at a family level, a cultural level, a societal level, global level. So all of these things that are revealing themselves to be witnessed and integrated are just that. It's so that the crystal can form and can be in its true expression, and the light can come through. And um, even down to talking about neutrinos, the information from outside in the ethers is passing through you. And if it can't pass through those areas that aren't integrated, then you're not receiving the information in the clarity that it has come from. And there's like a thought around even the way astrology, or the reason astrology has an impact on us day to day, is because there's neutrinos that have bounced through and from even the outer planets and back through to our planet. And that's part of what we're experiencing too, is this like infinite information. So there's a really beautiful like I don't even know what you would refer to the Cosmo relationship, but there's like a Cosmo um, energy that wants to feed through you, and not just like what's in our like Earth's atmosphere of information.
I would maybe I mean, would that be, or could you toggle that to like, you know, like transmission codes, light codes, codes of the grid. Like, I mean, that's I think what you're speaking of, right? And it's like when it I just keep getting these like flashes of images. So I'm gonna try to to uh, vocalize this as best that I can. But it's almost as if like when you think about a tapestry,
Mhm.
right, being made on a loom, that what's the thing that goes back and forth? The shuttle.
Mhm.
So it goes back and forth, right? And it sometimes can like have little like knots
Mhm.
in it, but through each and every, like when we say everything is interconnected, like everything is interconnected. Like
Mhm.
the fractal makeup, and it's like this one big tapestry. And so like every thought that's going out is getting like put into this this tapestry, and then all of these codes coming in and out. Like then you think about the Schumann resonance on the planet and how that's coming from radiation frequencies from the sun and from other stars. And they've like, and scientifically they've proven this. They've
Mhm.
like proven the spike in through sound, actually, that how it reverberates through the like through and around the earth's, you guys aren't going to see this video, but through and around the earth's atmosphere and grid, like it's like a ripple that comes through. And they've measured it via sound from light years away, and it was like whoop, and it goes so fast, but it's like a radiation flash through the, so when there's solar flares happening, like all of the light bearers and I would say light beings on the world, when we all like meditated around bringing in the earth's grid for 5D, like upgrading the grid, like that in and of itself was really powerful moment. Like I was leading a meditation and I was just like bawling. Like the collective energy that I was tapped into was so freaking beautiful. And so I would say, like, I mean, is that maybe what you're what you're like like, because that was the image I was getting, was like this is like, I mean, it's like a grid, but it is seriously like the biggest tapestry you could ever imagine, the interconnectedness of like everything moving, but like the thread of everything, like a web.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's all connected.
Mhm.
And like you said, it's like bouncing around. And if you're blocked or you're living in one of those not truths, if you will, um, how when information, or when we're too much on the left brain, right? We're too much in our logic, and we're not like, this is something really big in the work that I do with my clients, is like really helping them learn how to decipher
Mhm.
what is coming from outside of themselves, but in a higher state,
Mhm.
than what is their ego or their logic coming
Mhm.
through, or something that they've been told from somebody else, like their mother or their parent, or their caregiver or teacher or whatever that they've been taught, or like what's coming from like a guide or an angel or their higher self,
Mhm.
right? And so there's like all this information coming to you in different ways. And like, how do you begin to unlock and decipher those things? And it's like, first and foremost, you kind of have to get out of your head.
Mhm.
And I mean, you don't have to do anything, right? Like, I don't want to tell somebody what to do, but like, really, you have to, there's this like, this necessity to move from the brain and logically trying to make sense of it, and drop into your body and allow things to land in a way and sit with them. And again, like, not thinking about it while it's in your body, because you can, like you were saying before, the mind is so beautiful. And our imagination can go a million and one different a billion different places. But what is actually happening, your mind probably hasn't even thought about.
Mhm.
And the aspect of like what is available to you and what is out there, when we begin to do our healing and integrate in the way whatever was not true to us, when we can integrate what is true and release the not truth, all
Mhm.
of a sudden, those things that are caught in your field that are waiting for you, like boop, they just like plug right in. And then all of a sudden you have that insight
Mhm.
or that intuitive hit.
Mhm.
And a lot of times that comes from being very still, very quiet, when
Mhm.
your mind isn't really like quote unquote thinking, you know, like I can't tell you how many downloads I've had while driving across the country on a road trip. I'm not like doing anything with driving and like keep my you know myself in my lane, but all of a sudden it's like turn your radio off. I'm like, oh okay. Let's turn the music off, and it's like brrr, you know, and I'm just like, oh okay, I can receive right now because I'm not doing anything else except like steering and looking at the road because I'm on cruise control, you know, or like when you're in your shower, like how many people have had their like genius idea when they're in the shower, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
So
That's actually a really fun practice if people are kind of straddling between the two, like not quite like dropping in and channeling, but also aware that there's something else that they're engaged with day to day.
yeah.
So when you are driving, if we could bring this whole neutrino aspect down to real everyday terms, is the there's this energy that's constantly moving all around us. And it's like I equate it to like this flex that you see in like the morning light when you can kind of see the dust
Yeah.
against the light. So imagine that, but on a like brilliance level of just
Mhm.
like glitter dust everywhere. That's what's actually out there. We just with our human eye have had to rein it in to be in this material form. So if you're driving and you're on a forward trajectory of the path ahead of you, then you're actually crossing through like trillions of information, little neutrinos that are going from side to side too. So not only are you piercing through going forward, but you're capturing waves side to side. And then as you expand in your awareness and your channeling, you'll have it from above too.
Mhm.
So it's really fascinating to start identifying what is moving through you versus what is resonating with you. Because you can
Mhm.
have like some crazy thoughts too in that
Oh yeah.
process
Yeah.
of like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that before. But you're driving through town and maybe there's like some weird energy there. And that's what you're picking up on.
Mhm.
So that's where it's like there's no truth in the now and there's only truth in the now, kind of
Right,
like
right.
is like the yin and the yang of the experience of then there's certainly no truth in the past,
Right,
like
right.
so then you can start, that's where I guess the brilliance of the mind kind of wanes because the mind is the conduit of the curiosity and the
Mhm.
engagement of and the creativity of, but it's not the finality of truth. And
Mhm. This is so true. And I love that I mean, I love glitter just in and of itself. They say it's like the STD of the art world. Like you use glitter once and it's just like spreads and you can't get rid of it. And it's like you do laundry and it's like still everywhere. You're like, and people are like, oh, you got a piece of glitter on your face. You're like, damn it. But but it's so true. And like my telepathic abilities have gotten insanely strong. And so like I pick up on things that I am like, I don't want to listen to that right now. Like, I don't want to hear that, you know? And so it's interesting because I feel like I have to be like, I've gotten very good at deciphering whether it's mine, whether it's a thought that I'm like letting kind of like spiral, like when you think about it, like a vortex, right? Like not a hurricane, but oh yeah,
tornado.
like a hurricane or like a tornado, right? It
Mhm.
like spins out, causes anxiety, right? Like if it's something like that, if it's a narrative that's spinning up, or if it's somebody else channeling in. And like if I know the person, a lot of times I'm like, oh, I can tell whose energy it is. I can like feel their imprint because everybody's imprint is very specific,
Mhm.
you know? But it's interesting too, because it's like all of a sudden something's coming in. I'm like, don't want to listen to that. So it's like I feel like I have to kind of like pluck it out
Mhm.
and like literally like flick it away and then like recreate my like orb of protection, I guess, if you will, and like just strengthen that and seal it again. And then like there are people that are really persistent too. So yeah, you have to be really, I would say, I don't want to say careful, but yeah, you have to be deciphering for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and the discerning aspect, like it's like weather, it's like energy weather of, you're still going to want to go out and do things. You don't want to avoid things and live in fear. That's not the approach. But discerning what gets to have your attention and what gets to
Right.
mutate through you, and what gets to, mutate through the like collective evolution, that's where it becomes really fun to be intentional in your life and aligned in your life. And it it starts to matter. I mean, it matters anyway, but it really does matter
I
when,
mean, like, how much has it changed your life just being intentional?
oh yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, like literally, if you like Wayne Dyer's book, The Power of Intention, had such a huge, profound effect on me.
Mhm.
Like when, like this morning, I intended that today be a day full of magic and like amazing mind expanding miracles that happened that I couldn't explain or had no hand in, like that's the intention of what I
Mhm.
set this morning,
Mhm.
and it's like, I don't know what the day holds, but I'm
Mhm.
intending for it to hold something like that energy. So
Mhm.
like even just having this conversation, like
Mhm.
this isn't us talking on our linear logical mind. Like we're both like totally channeling, bringing all of this beautiful information through for whoever's listening. And I mean, like, intention, I think, is one of the biggest keys to living a conscious life,
Mhm. Mhm.
to having these miracles and synchronicities and alignment start to happen, is
Mhm.
because you've become intentional with your choices, you've become intentional with your time, with the negotiations in which you're making of who you're allowing in and what you're allowing in and what you're ingesting, whether that be music or media or food, or imbibing, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, intentionality, so
Mhm.
big.
And even as a parent, so being intentional as a parent has completely shifted my, just like everything about what I do, from how he eats to how he gets to choose his freedom. Um, and then also in myself, and still saying, you need to choose yourself first, because that has implications for my son. So
Totally.
it's not this martyrdom approach anymore, which I think a lot of women go through when they become mothers, of this like, I will self-sacrifice for my child, but you're actually not benefiting your children at all when you
Mhm.
sacrifice yourself, because you're modeling the behavior of sacrifice for what? For, you're modeling the behavior of sacrifice for money, or for a uninspired job, or a limiting belief, whatever it may be. And that, in the grand scheme, does not embed strength in who they will become down the road, and who they will become when they're integrated within society. So it's actually in the best interests of parents too, to understand that there is a lot of value in being intentional with your partner, with yourself, and with your kids. Um,
Absolutely. One of my good friends just had a baby on Saturday, and she
um,
told me that her husband, and I know not everybody can do this, but that her husband was taking, oh, I want to say 6 weeks off. Maybe it was 6 months, but like he was taking a good amount of time off in the beginning just for paternity leave to like be with her. And, I mean, those first moments are so hard, but I thought, how beautiful of him to like literally put his job on hold and take that much. I feel like it was longer than what they would normally get.
Mhm.
Like it felt like, I want to say maybe it was 6 months, but that she chose and he chose, very intentionally to do
Mhm.
that. And I mean, maybe they'd saved up, and then she even was like stopping work and taking on, she had like started her own thing during COVID. But it's like, she was even stopping just to like really give this whole next year to her newborn baby girl,
Mhm.
and I was like, that's so beautiful. And I know that's not the case for everybody. I know if you're listening to this and you're like, that would be really nice, but I think that there is this, intention around, well, if the type of job and career that you have now doesn't allow for that, in there's a negotiation that can happen there, and a recommitment to yourself and your life and what it is that you're wanting moving forward, and what changes need to happen,
Mhm.
what North Star are you looking at, right?
Mhm.
And then what are the planets around that, to loop back to what you were saying, and then how can you reverse engineer it and start to get really, because I think we have to know what that North Star is, right? And
Mhm.
like you said, like I had said earlier, and like you said, it's like you may not quote unquote know exactly what it is,
Mhm.
but there's those innate things within you that you've always kind of known that you've desired or wanted. So just put those up there.
Mhm.
And then from there, what steps, what are the planets that you can identify? And then what are the orbits around, the moons around them, that you can start to land on, right? And like reverse engineered and make those like tinier steps forward.
Mhm. Mhm. And in the coming decades, the people that are resisting that like, oh, I'm the victim of this circumstance, those are the very people that are intended to shift the circumstance. So there's this whole really fun sequence in the gene keys called the Pearl sequence.
Yeah.
And it directly outlines, there's like a sequencing of how money from big corporations is gonna now flow back down again through the greater community, and not just through philanthropy but through charity.
That gives
So
me goosebumps. Got
it's
goosebumps everywhere.
the way we're designed to operate is to face these moments where, I can't do it now, but I deserve to have this support. And then those are the people that are engaged in, okay, let's set up a foundation where women are 100% covered. You don't have to know what it looks like in final form. It's the intention of, that's the North Star, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
then
mm-hmm.
the first steps are, okay, let me find out how many women are going to need to leave on maternity leave in the next year, 2 years, however many time you want to plan out. And okay, where do they live? Okay, what communities would be interested in something like this? Okay, and then where will that money come from? Okay, how
Mm-hmm.
will we get that money to us that we need? And it's designed within the Pearl sequence to have everybody be a member of each of these steps. And
Mm-hmm.
for my chart specifically, it's charity. So it's intended that I don't worry about who to go to for the money to come through, that
Mm-hmm.
my intention is only about who needs this money.
Mine is,
So it would be the profile line next to your pearl or
okay,
below.
so mine is immortality, totality, purposelessness, and line two, recognition.
Okay, do you have like a line to point something?
Vocation and culture.
There's usually a
So here's
profile.
my pearl right here.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. So yes, 28 too. So yours is about partnering with one other to get this money to the final destination.
Ah, okay. Okay. So one other as opposed to like super collaborative.
Yes.
Okay.
Like groups or organizations or anything like that. So if you think of it in the grand scheme of things, there's what we're living in now, which is like a very corporate identity of money.
Right.
So all of this money is sitting at this very like heavy structural top
Right.
portion. So the way we need to retrofit that is, okay, we know that's where the money is coming from. So then we need the 5 lines to identify which corporations have the money to funnel from.
Mm-hmm.
And the 4 lines are, okay, we need to create businesses or entities where that money can then feed through. So in the traditional form, it would be corporate organizations donating to investment firms.
Okay.
Investment firms are no longer investment firms back for the corporates. It's actually firms that now will distribute money continuously down the line.
Okay.
So we'll call these firms the like philanthropic firms of like, okay, money needs to get out. We don't know who to yet, but we know it needs to go out to these segments of population.
Okay.
So those are your 4 lines. And then your 3 lines are disrupting those industries and segments of population. So within, if we take the city of LA, we're going to choose homelessness, we're going to choose single moms, we're going to choose education for kids. And then that lump sum continues to get distributed outward. And then the 2 line is the okay, I'm going to work with this partner to distribute out for the good of the people within this area. So it's not relying on just you divvying out to everybody, but it's you along with the mind of another person.
Love it.
And finally, the 1 is really here. Profile 1s are really here to just like live in their experience of money and generosity and where to put it and where it goes. So it's a very singular experience if you have a 1 line in the pearls. And I should say the 4 lines, so the ones that are divvying up, like breaking up this lump sum, are referenced as the charity. And then 2 lines are referenced as the philanthropic. So it's this very like for the good, the longevity of the good, whereas charity is more about this is an urgent need now and we need to just cover that.
Got you. Okay.
But one of the big differentiations is that there's no strategy to this. So it's all about following the right brain of this is where the heart's led. This is what's out of coherence. This is how we get them back in line.
Got it. That's really interesting. And, it's funny how, because nobody's going to watch this video, but how you said, okay, so we've got like the corporations up here, right? And her hands went up and she had almost like this like base or platform, right? And then everything's down below. All of us are down below that aren't corporations that don't hold all the money, right? And so as you were talking, it was so interesting because this has been channeling through for some time now, at least over the past like couple of years since COVID started, about how our structures and foundations are changing. And it was so interesting as you were talking, I was seeing all of these like ladders and staircases and like new platforms being built all below whatever that corporation was at the top. And so, and this is the way that it's come through energetically for me more times than not, where it's like, there's so much happening underneath what you can see. There's like an undercurrent. So if you think about everything in this world happening on this plane, right? But like, if you literally go underground, like to the next level of like whatever that floor down is, there's this whole substructure being rebuilt. And like right now, even with this full moon in Aquarius, like the activation of these disruptors that are coming, like this was kind of what channeled through today around this new moon. But it's like everybody is getting in line with their truth. More and more people there's more checks and balances happening, and we're seeing that kind of play out in the physical reality. But eventually these like big structures up top they're crumbling, like their foundations are crumbling. And once those foundations crumble and those things come down, what's going to be left is the substructure that just got built. And so these are the people that are catalysts, that are disruptors, that are changing the game in so many different ways, but they're almost working in silence. It's like they're not on the forefront. You kind of don't know about them yet, like they're working in the shadows right now, and they're just waiting for that main structure to fall so that they can have their uprising. And I feel like that's really what's happening with this new moon. It's like the facade is coming down, the masks are coming off, like people are really standing in their power, just even coming through the Lion's Gate after we get through this like Leo energy. So many people are aligning with their personal power and really like not playing small anymore, not allowing themselves. Like it's like energetically, it's like cannot hold anymore. It's like I have to come up and out. I have to shine my light. I have to share my truth, whatever that is. Like this just does not feel good to me anymore. I cannot negotiate with this. Like I'm making the decision and the commitment to change, to step into whatever this is, even if I don't know what this is, but like I'm moving in that direction and I'm going to choose that because it just feels so much better. And so if you have a lot of dissonance in your field, if you have a lot of friction with the people that you're around, just know you are literally on the verge of one of the biggest breakthroughs of your life, and you're coming into your own. And that's the best way I can describe it. It's like that friction, that dissonance, that's telling you that like it is not for you anymore. And like literally you are either going to choose to move out of it, or the universe is going to like pull you out of it, which usually hurts a little bit more. It's a little bit more like, soul shaking and shakes you up a bit. But it's like, if whether it's your empowerment to choose it or not, like we're all being really pushed onto our path right now. And so I feel like we're going to probably see a lot of these three lines coming into their power, taking leadership roles, like really coming up, and like just the disruptors. Like I feel like more and more of that is going to start happening throughout the end of 2022 and pretty much the first part of 2023 up until like the summer, when I feel like everything will kind of start to, I think that's when we're really going to start to see the balancing of the scales.
And it looks like the big energy is till, is it March 2023?
Yeah, I feel like it'll be like spring, summer, that it's like we're really going to be like, oh,
yeah.
And all the people that were saying are like reading my stuff and being like, what the fuck is she talking about? They're gonna be like, oh, that's what she's talking about. Like, okay, I see it now, like, but I'm like, energetically, it's already happening. Like it's been happening, but it's like, it takes longer on the physical to show up. But it's like right now we're starting to see all the cracks in the foundation. You're starting to see where checks and balances haven't been done, and those are starting to happen. We're not going to see the full recalibration of it until next year, but yeah.
Yes.
I know. True liberation is happening, which it feels so good. This is really the most exciting time I think we could be alive.
Yeah, I agree. As always, I'm optimistic about what's about to be revealed.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it feels like, is like, I think I know it can be really difficult to be optimistic or to see the glass half full when we're really focused on what is happening in the 3D reality, because it is so heart-wrenching sometimes. But at the same time, there it is. It's that dissonance that you're being shown. Oh, there's something off. And where can I, in my being,
Mhm.
where can I make a transformation to be a solution to whatever that is in my community
Mhm.
or in my orbit? Maybe it's not even your community, maybe it's just your tribe, like your nearest and dearest, and then it's like, okay, and how does that feed outward?
Mhm.
And again, it's like reverse engineering, or you're like your mind map ultimately, right? Like you have the thing in the middle, you're like North Star, and then you have all the things that go off of it. And
Mhm.
then the little subsets of things that go off of that, of the actionable steps that you can take. And
Mhm.
so I think I don't know, did you want to talk about more of these quote unquote tests that are bringing us back into the matrix,
Mm.
back into 3D? Because I think this would be a good place to kind of end, because, you know, really what we're talking about, like, I can get super woo woo, I know, and talking about energy, and like I do my best to ground it and make it very realistic for you. But at the same time, like there's so much happening in the world, and this is a time that we need to really be solution based, and sitting in that frequency of optimism, and like zooming out and seeing things from a a broad perspective of the whole, as opposed to just the one thing that's happening right now on the timeline. So I'm interested if you want to talk more about that.
Yeah, to bring it into like very pragmatic terms, it is just fusing or prioritizing the intentionality of something with the alignment of something. And right now, probably in a lot of our circles that, people listening, and then you and I are people who are recalibrating to what that is. And for some, it's going to be significant adjustments of where they live. Part of that is the alignment of whatever the work or whatever the desire that is there. It needs to be in alignment with a different frequency of environment, and that's okay. Kind of like let your awareness explore what that feels like, because your body won't lie. If it feels expansive, then that is the right guidance. If it feels constricting, that there's most likely some sort of fear element in there to kind of to be kind with. But ultimately, alignment also means that you're not in a role in your day-to-day life that is out of coherence with your personal life. So if you are really successful in your career right now, but the same love and attention isn't shown in your innermost circle of family, then that is out of alignment. And that will be part of what is seeking alignment right now. So it could be in the form of a job change, or hopefully you consenting to, a shift in your professional career. But it feels like this is the time of like the words like conservancy that's coming around, of like that alignment seeks to conserve the energy that's required to then move fully ahead come this time next year. And from the moment we're in now through the latter part of the year, we're in human design we're in the quarter of relationships. So a lot of this is going to be around the foundation of what relationships are going to be supportive, like that support system for the long term. And if the support system that you feel is there now isn't actually there for the long term, then those will be the ones that start to get in alignment first. And then same with your work. So if having a support system in your career or work is more superficial and it's not the deep kind of support you need to grow into your full potential, then
Mhm.
that will be another area that is going to seek alignment. So hopefully, again, with your consent and not for
And the
not like
universe not doing it for you.
yeah, like a rude awakening. I know like awakenings are really tough, but rude awakenings are even more tough. So,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
I do believe that we're guided in a way that's very familiar with us. So we know when we're getting the right kind of guidance to follow the right path, and we know when we're negotiating and trying to buy time to stay on a path that is out of alignment. We know, you know what it feels like.
You're so right. You're so right. You can ask anybody that has gone through any super big kind of rude awakening. If you'll ask them, like, was there something that happened before or an inkling that you had that like something bad was going to happen? And every single time, usually they're like, yep, yep. It's like, like energy doesn't lie, and it's so interesting to talk about this with somebody that is really logical and linear, but you're like, if you felt that was something in your physical DNA literally letting you know, stop, or like, wait, we need you to reassess here. We need you to make a different decision. And there have been multiple times like where I've tried to buy time, being in that I don't know, and like, oh, like I'm not ready to make a decision, And so like in that there is a little bit of a rude awakening. It's not huge, but it's like enough of that like caveat, like knife coming in to like jar you up and out, like jar your roots up and out to like make the move, without them having to like literally heave ho you out.
Yeah. And it's important to have those conversations. If there's something coming to mind right now, well, where you're like, oof, I feel that, I know that's out of alignment, and it involves another person, it's actually perfectly okay to just be honest and say, listen, this is really out of alignment with who I am as a person, with what I value as a person, whatever it is that is like calling your attention. And that will be the final awareness that you will need to have revealed in order to be like, I made the right decision.
Yeah.
Because if the person's really understanding and supports you, then there's something to work from. But if the person is shutting down and is not interested in that that growth alongside you, or to support you in your own growth, then that's your answer there too.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually have a call with somebody right now that we're talking a lot about alignment and integrity. And so it's interesting to see what resolution will come from that. But I was so happy that she was open to the call, so I think that's just a beautiful place to kind of like loop back in and end, because it really is. I mean, like this whole conversation has really been about intention, integrity. And when we are in integrity, we're in alignment with our commitment, and we're in alignment with our higher self. And it's like, I mean, I could not draw a more perfect ellipses of like everything we talked about today and how it all intertwined back together and like reconnected. So thank you for that, Allison. Thank you for that like period at the end of this amazing conversation. I love these talks so much.
Me too. I love seeing you and just riffing together. And it's always like what needs to be shared, and then the energy of it too. There's like just positivity and hope, and an awareness that this is all part of the flow. So
Oh, definitely. And I think we're always just riffing with our higher selves in these, because I mean, who can record a 2-hour podcast? Like nothing. I mean, the like amount of topics we cover and we thread through in a 2-hour span. And I mean, like every podcast I listen to is usually like half an hour, an hour max. And for us to be continual at the 2-hour mark, I think is really saying something.
Oh, awesome. Well, it was good to see you.
You too. And I hope you guys have a wonderful next month. I'm not sure when. We're usually kind of recording once a month, but we'll just, when the time is right again, we'll record another episode. But I hope you guys enjoy this one, and can't wait to share more. All right. Bye, Allison.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Your Inner Authority, the Sacred Art of Living in Your Authentic Truth with Allison and myself. If you like this, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And please, as an energetic exchange, all that we ask is for you to share this with someone you love that you think will vibe with it as well. We are looking to grow organically and to share all of our insight and knowledge with whomever is ready to hear it. We love you guys, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you all in the next episode.